Hello, babes. Hello. Welcome back. This is part two of So We're Getting a Divorce. And I had to really move to another room, y'all, because they out there cutting grass or something, honey. And it was really upsetting to me and my homegirls because we was having a good conversation. I mean, the tea was being poured, okay? The girls had their cups, everybody had saucers, everybody had their hats on. Baby, everybody was ready, okay? The fascinators were properly tilted and are y'all cutting the grass? It's the disrespect for me. But at any rate, we are back. Welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back, my babes of a certain age. We here. This is Be Youthfully You. And again, we're going to finish this up, part two. So, we left off with me finding out that basically, he had decided that he wasn't going to do anything. Nothing different was going to happen. Nothing. And like I said, we were 20 years in at that point, and decisions, you have to own the decisions that you make. That's the one thing that I know. You have to own the decisions that you make. Again, good, bad, or indifferent. It's you can't shift blame. And being that I was raised in, like I said, accountability, yeah. Good intentions, what you thought, well, I didn't mean to. You can't run from things for forever. And if you decide that you want to go in a different direction, that's fine. But just know that everybody has the right to make their own decisions. Again, what you decide is fine. But just know that for every action, there's a reaction. So, again, like I said, I'm at that point where I had started collecting my boxes, packing my things, and getting ready to leave my beautiful house. My mother was she was so hurt and so upset, and I won't say hurt and upset. Like, she kind of knew that it could possibly come to this, but she also, just thought about all the work that I had put into making the house beautiful and stuff like that. And the one thing I told my mother was, one thing I know, Mama, and I've realized is that this is a house, and it's not the home that I want it to be. I wanted a home. I wanted a place where what it was, like, I wanted to be there, to be peace here and be able to come here and relax. And this is where I can heal from whatever it is that was going on in the world. And I could be good with whatever it was that was going on. And, I could step away. That's what I felt home was. I could come in here and rest. Like, I could take all my walls down and all my defenses, and today I can rest when I come home. And I didn't feel that. That wasn't here. As beautiful as it was just a pretty mess. It was just a pretty mess. But again, I own the decisions that I made in order to get there. And that's everything. Everything that I decided to deal with, everything that I, just said, okay, well, maybe it's not this or maybe it's that. But I also knew that this had run its course. It had run its course. And it was not up to just me to decide what was going to happen as far as this marriage goes. There were two people involved. I was only one side of the story. I wasn't up for trying to convince anybody of anything. I wasn't up for trying to make it look like anything for anybody on the outside. That included in-laws, friends, neighbors. I didn't care what nobody thought, because what I did know is that nobody else lived within those four walls but us. And nobody else knew what went on in those four walls but us. Nobody. So for whatever it was that was or was not happening as a result of, was only could only be identified by the two people that were involved. So people could feel how they wanted to feel. They could feel how you want to feel, but guess what? This is still where we are. So I had to make a decision. So I made one, and I set my date for when I wanted to move out of the house. I was very open and honest because, again, I wanted us to be amicable. I wanted us to be amicable in this story. Well, not in this story. I wanted us to be amicable with what was about to happen with us. So I knew that at this point in life, this is where we were. This is what we were finna have to do. That was gonna be that. Nothing else mattered. So that's what I started to do. That's what I started to do. So I started making preparations. It was kind of interesting as I think about it now because it just kind of seemed like either a joke to him or something, but it's like until he actually really started to see me moving boxes and, moving boxes around and, doing things and stuff like that within the house, like I stopped cooking. I stopped even trying to connect, with him. Like in any way I'm going to be pleasant, I was going to do that. But that was like really all that I was going to do. I had gone as far as I'm going to go. I'm not going to be nasty in here every day because your energy got to come in here with my energy. And then my child is still here. Yeah, I said my child because that's what I started to think at that point. But I never was you can't, I was not going to do all of that. So that's where I was in the story. So I knew that I had to financially prepare for what it was that was about to happen. I had to find me and my child a place to go. And all the decisions that had to be made going forward, I was going to be responsible for them. So that's what I did. That's what I did. I had to get me some movers. I took into consideration the school that my son was already going to because I did not want to uproot him and change his life entirely. So I had to do what it was that I had to do in order for us to get where it was that I knew I needed to go for me so that I could be the best parent that I could be to my son. So with that being said, I just kept moving in that way. I wasn't sneaking and doing anything. I was everything that, like I said, he could see me packing. He could see me, being strategic or whatever he thought it was. But he could see that I was taking actions and taking the steps towards moving out of our current home. So he definitely was not in at that point. It was like, okay, well, you're leaving me. You're leaving me. You're leaving me. I didn't care what you called. I didn't care what he called it at that point. I didn't care. It didn't matter because I had made a decision. So he was not a person that felt that, hey, I'm going to continue. I'm going to do what was necessary for this to take steps to save the marriage. So you don't want to do that. That's fine. But I'm going to do what it is I got to do to maintain my sanity. So that's where I had arrived at. So at that point, moving forward. I've already said what I'm going to do. And again, I don't backpedal. So I made a decision. I'm making the moves in order to get these things done so that I can move into the next phase of my life, so that I can continue to raise my son and move on to do what I need to do for me. So that's what I did. It was interesting. It was an interesting 3 months, I think it was, before I actually moved out of the house. And so I just continued to stay focused on what it was that I needed to do. What my end game was, where I was trying to go. I had my own agenda now because I see clearly that you got yours. Hey, I got mine. So it was cool. You can't take and have an expectation of somebody. You say, hey, I want a divorce, but then I still want you to show me and I want you to still keep chasing me. And I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that. Again, this is my story. This is my story. I didn't want any of that. All I wanted to do was be free of this situation. And that's what I did. That's what I focused on. Y'all really do look crooked, and I'm hoping that y'all are not. But if y'all are, again, just roll with me. If you have to not look at it, turn on in the background, then that's fine. But I had to make a decision, and that's what I did. And I was able to find us my son and I, a much smaller house, of course, because it was just going to be on my income. And I found us a place to stay. And he was still in the neighborhood with his friends and stuff like that. So it was generally in our same area, but it allowed me to keep some normalcy for him. And that was what was most important to me at that time, trying to keep life as normal for him as I possibly could. And like I said, I moved. He actually even drove the truck for me, my moving truck. He talked a little smack, afterwards talking about, oh, I could have did this and I could have did that. It didn't matter. You drove the truck. You moved the stuff. He did not move not one piece, and I was fine with that. But he did drive the truck for me. So, because again, I don't have anything to hide. I'm just not that person. I'm not, and the situation wasn't like that because again, he was going to have to come where I was in order to see our son anyway. So that's just where it all landed. And I will say this from my heart, I have been a better me ever since the day I made that decision. I made that decision for me. I made that decision because of where I was in my life. I made that decision because of the fact that I felt that this had run its course. I had nothing else to give to this marriage. I had nothing else to give to it. I had exhausted all measures. I had stayed as long as I felt that I could stay. And I did not want to grow to hate this person, because hate is a very strong word. I did not want to get to a place where I despised this person. That's a lot of energy. You ever seen a situation or experienced a situation where you had you just don't really like somebody, and just not liking that person is exhausting. It is exhausting to no ends. You ever had that feeling? It's tiring. Once you do finally go to sleep, oh my God, you're just exhausted. You're exhausted. And then you can't stay asleep too long because you still got that energy on you, and you wake up and a lot of times you're still mad. I don't want that. I don't want that life. That's not who God created me to be. That's not who I am. So I just knew that I'll leave. I'll leave. Nothing in here is worth it. Stuff and things, none of that stuff, it wasn't worth it to me. Again, my story. It wasn't worth it to me. It wasn't worth it to me. I wanted to keep my sanity. I wanted to protect me and who it is that I am. That's what I had to do. And I needed to raise my son. And I did not want to raise my son in a household that had that kind of energy in it, because that was not love. It was not positivity. It wouldn't have even been good for him to see his parents being like that, because I'm a Virgo and I don't hide well. So if I don't like you, I'm going to either get away from you as far as I can, or I'm going to really just disconnect myself from you. I know how to be pleasant, and y'all see the lawnmower is now trying to come in here. Hold please, because we're going to close this door and see if we can cut some of that off. Hold on. Because we're not finna do this. We're going to finish this video, and we are not fixing to just keep being outdone by this. Okay. Ooh, but hold on. Subject lost. Wait a minute. Hold please. Hold please. Now I got to get it to start again because I got up. Let's see if I can get it to find me. Find me. Find me, Bookie. Find me. There we go. And I'm back. Like I never left. Divorce can be hard. It can be very hard. And I will say again, we don't get married to get divorced. It can be challenging. It is not a good feeling. It is not, I'm just going to say this. It may not be what you want. It may not be what you want, but it may be necessary. I had to walk that walk. I had to walk it out. I had to own my decision. I did. I had to own it. And to this day, I still stand 10 toes on it. I own my decision that I made. I know my whys. I know how I got there. I know why I did not look back. I know. I know. I don't play a blame game of he did, I didn't. I don't do any of that. I just didn't do any of that. Because it doesn't matter. We know where it ended up. We know where it ended up. Two people going in two different directions and nobody's willing to cross over or meet the other person halfway. It did not work for me. It did not. Nothing that we were in possession of was worth my peace. Nothing was worth my peace. It was not worth my happiness. It was not worth me stunning my growth. I could not grow in that relationship. And I mean literally being in that relationship as a person, I could not grow because I was going to always have that feeling in the back of my mind of the fact that I got to go home and you going to be there. I don't even like you. I don't like this person that you've become. And that was my choice. I didn't have to deal with you. I don't have to. So I'm going to move. And, I made moves to do what it was I needed to do to maintain my happiness. And I promise you, happier than I've ever been in my whole life. My latter years have been way, way better than my former years. Was it bad all the time? No, it was not. It was not bad all the time. Did the good outweigh the bad? That's subject to debate. It was not up to him to say whether or not we were going to stay together or not. It wasn't. I had made a decision. Like I said, a decision had to be made, and that's what I did. Everyone has to look at it through their own lens. Your lens may be different than someone else's. Some people are going to celebrate, On the day that we actually went to court for our divorce, we actually sat side by side in the courtroom. We sat side by side. Chit-chatted a little bit, this, that. We met with the, what is that person called? The mediator type person. Got everything ironed out because I filed. I paid for it. Because when I say I'm done, I'm done. That's period. I was done. I had did everything I could do. I had given everything. That's it. I'm serious. It wasn't going to be we're going to drag this out because I'm trying to see if you're going to, Decision made. I am a decision maker. So I made a decision. I had papers served, and we got a court date. And when I tell you, I don't know anybody, when I have told people how quickly everything moved, they were like, what? Yes. When I tell you inside of, February, March, less than 3 months. I promise, less than 3 months. I filed in February. We went to court. I'm talking about we had to move from, you have to go, because we had a minor child, we had to go to the class. I can't remember what they call it, but we had to go to the class. Between February, you got served. We went to the class. In April, we were in court. And I'm talking about like the earlier part of April, like the 17th or something like that. All the way up to, like I said, we went to court. We did everything. We sat in there. We were like the last ones. And my former last name started with an A. We were in there. And when I tell you, we were like the last ones in court that day. And again, he is who he is. And I think the judge kind of like looked at him, and I'll just say this, and this is my opinion, because his mannerisms in her courtroom were a little disrespectful. Like he was leaning over on the podium, you know, kind of matter of factly, like, you know. And so I stood on my side, he stood on his side, and the judge addressed both of us. And, you know, she asked us the questions. And it was real short and sweet. It went so fast, honey, I never would have known it was that going to be that fast. And the judge asked us, she said, do you no longer want to be married, sir? He was like, I mean, it don't matter to me. Y'all know you don't address no judge like that. That's disrespectful. Yes, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. She looked over at me. She just kind of looked at him, and she looked over at me, and she said, do you no longer want to be married to him? I said, no, Your Honor, I do not. She asked the clerk in the court, I will never forget this. She said, hand me that paperwork. Hand me her paperwork. Her paperwork. She asked me to come up approach the bench. I came up. I said, yes, Your Honor. She said, I am going to sign these papers for you right now. She said, you need to take these papers downstairs and have them stamped today. She said, now, if you don't go downstairs, you won't have them. Today won't be the day. She said, but you take these papers downstairs and you get them stamped today. She said, once those papers are stamped and dated, she said, you are divorced today. If you want to go get married tomorrow, you can. You will be divorced today. I just looked at her. I said, thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate you. She said, you are very welcome. She asked me if I wanted to keep my last name. I said, yes, ma'am, I do. She said, good. I'm glad to hear that because you do have a minor child. She said, y'all have everything worked out? I said, yes, ma'am, we do, Your Honor. Again, you have to address them accordingly. It doesn't matter. This is her courtroom. I got my paperwork. I walked out of that courtroom with my papers in hand. And he was just walking beside me, you know, just, oh, we could be divorced today. Yeah, I'm going downstairs. I went downstairs. He asked me if I was going to get him a copy of them. I said, you can pay for one. This one is mine. I paid for this divorce, you know. And so you can pay for one because they got a copy back there. But these are mine. These are mine. And I went downstairs to the basement, got my papers stamped, and I was divorced that day. I will never forget that day as long as I live, because even though I knew how I had begun to feel and that I was done with the marriage, it still was the end of something. It was an end. It was a death. And again, that wasn't supposed to happen, but it happened and we were there. And I left there and I was like, okay, so what do I want to do today? I walked around in some stores, figured I would, maybe treat myself to something or something like that. Went to a clothing store, whatever. And I just was a little uninspired. I couldn't really figure out what it was. But later on, I kind of realized that's what it was. There was a death that day. There was a death. And it was definitely a DNR in place. I did not want it. I was done with it. And I had made a decision that I was done with it. And I was okay with that. But this still wasn't where I wanted it ultimately to end up to be, but this is what had to happen. So I've told my story to hopefully help someone who may be in a place where you just don't really know what it is you want to do. This isn't to sway your decision one way or the other, but just to let you know that you're not alone and you're not the only person that has been in this decision, been in this place. You're not. You're not. And for whichever way you decide to go or not go, I wish you the best in making this decision. And I pray that the choice that you make is the choice that's going to best suit you. Because again, it's not easy. It's not. It is not easy. But a decision does have to be made one way or the other. And that is my story time. That is my story time. It's life. It's life. And it's not always pretty all the time. It's not always happiness, joy, and Hallmark cards, unicorns and rainbows. It's not. Sometimes it is storming. Sometimes it is monsooning. Then sometimes you got the sun shining and it's raining at the same time. What do we do with that? But just know that, again, if you don't make a decision will be made for you. So do with that information what you will. I'm going to get off this FaceTime. It's been wonderful. I appreciate you all. I hope that this video reaches the person that needs to reach, that it needs to reach. Like, comment, subscribe, as always, and all the things. And I'm going to call y'all later because we still got some other stuff to talk about, child. We're going to try not to, it was sad, but things have to be discussed. So we have to be big girls and just talk about it. But at this point, I'm going to talk to y'all later. Y'all be good.